Hello, folks. Today we are going to be talking about claims for brain injuries with increasing symptoms over time. Welcome to another informative segment of Live with Mitch from the law firm of Proner and Proner. I'm your host, Mel McGoya. And we will sit down with the expert himself, Mr. Mitch Proner, a personal injury attorney with over 30 years of experience, here to answer your questions or any interesting topics that you might find useful in the personal injury world. How are you doing again, Mitch?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks, Mel. And it's an interesting topic we have today. And unfortunately, it's oftentimes a sad situation that's encountered when somebody has a brain injury. And oftentimes they don't even realize the severity until time, unfortunately, provides a painful reminder that they're not as well as they thought they were.
Yeah, well, let's dive into this. But before we start, folks, just remember, if you need to contact us, all consultations are free and confidential. Call us at any time at 1-800-321-1234. So let's dive in, Mitch. So the first portion of the question, is it normal for brain injuries to show symptoms days or weeks after a crash?
So it's very normal and happens all too often. So I'll give you a few stories. Had a woman. She was a couture milliner, and a couture milliner she was basically a high-end hat maker. Okay, and that's what a milliner is, and she made high-end hats for people that just wanted to get a very fancy hat and were willing to spend for it, and that was her career. And what had happened to her? She was in the kitchen, and she was cleaning out some teacups, and the cabinets fell off the wall.
Oh.
And they hit her. They knocked her to the ground, and she went to the hospital. And they said, "You okay?" And she said, "I think so. I just bumped my head." And they said, "Oh, okay, we'll check you out." And they basically, they said, "Did you lose consciousness?" She says, "No, I don't think so." And that was it. Well, weeks later, she's making appointments, doing her business, and people are showing up at her shop, and they'd say, "Was my hat ready?" And she'd say, "What are you doing here?" They said, "You made an appointment for me to come in." She says, "No, I didn't." Now, normally, if you make appointments and you forget them, and somebody comes up to you afterwards and says, "What happened?" You say, "Oh my God, I spaced it. I'm so sorry." For her, she had no memory. Then a friend calls her up and says, "What are you doing? We were supposed to meet in the park." And she says, "No, we didn't." And she says, "Yeah, we made plans to meet in the park." She says, "No." And these things kept happening. She realized something was wrong. So she ended up at the brain injury day treatment program at Rusk, which is a big rehab facility. I said, "Yeah, it's a brain injury." And it wasn't just her. I had another guy. He was walking into a bank, and he was going into the vestibule. A vestibule, I learned, just like I had to learn there was a milliner. I didn't know that word before I had that as a client. A vestibule is, how sometimes you'll have two glass doors before you go into a place? That area in between the two glass doors, that's a vestibule. So he goes through a glass door into a vestibule, and then it's happened repeatedly. I've had clients that this guy bangs his head on the second glass door. There was no sticker on it. They hadn't put it in yet.
Oh, wow.
They just put the glass door in, and they didn't put the sticker on.
Oof.
Incidentally, when we went back to take photos later, they put the sticker on, but they put it on upside down on the bottom. Anyway, but he thought he was fine. He was a designer, and he went to, they had a fashion week in Milan. And he spent the week there, and he came back. And normally when he would come back, he would tell all his staff and his people, and this is what designs are doing, and this is what we're doing. He would come up with a whole plan for the new season with what everything that's going on. And he was like a high-end designer. He was making a lot of money. He says, and he comes back and he gets in front of his people and he doesn't remember anything. And he realized he had like a blank slate. He couldn't remember. And they started to try to say, well, did you see this show? Did you see that show? And he's like, I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
And he, same thing. He had a brain injury. I got a third client. He was a HVAC guy, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And he was going into, there was an Italian TV station called RAI, R-A-I, and he was going into their offices on Avenue of the Americas and 58th Street. And he was checking out their HVAC room, and there was a pipe right in the doorway with what he called a drip leg, which is a little piece of pipe. Same thing. I had these cases. I learned these words and they stick with me. So he was looking in with his flashlight. It was dark, and he hits his head on the drip leg. And he says, I hit my head. Like, everybody hits the head. I hit my head. I said, I hit my head. And he says he wrote down in a report, hit my head on drip leg. He shined it up, and, he says it shouldn't have been in the doorway. He doesn't know who put it there, why they put it there, but it shouldn't be right in the doorway at head height. Anyway, it was July 3rd. And that night, fortunately, wrote in the report, hit his head. That night, he gets in his car and he starts to drive down to New Orleans, where he's seeing some old friends. And he drives down. He has to stop along the way because he feels like he's just tired. And he stops along the way, and then he plays cards with his friends, and he's sleeping like 14 hours a day. Oof. And he's thinking he's got the flu or something. And he drives back, and he's with his wife, not for the trip, but when he gets back. And she says he woke up in the morning and he was speaking to her, and she said to him, Joe, you're not making any sense. Joe, you're not making any sense. She says, come on, we got to get you to the doctor. And she gets him in the car, and she's driving. And as she's driving, he starts throwing up blood.
Oh, no.
And it turned out he had a pinprick bleed in his brain that slowly filled up the brain with blood. And the injuries didn't reveal himself. He gets surgery, and he seems fine, but he's got no short-term memory. So you could ask him, like, what'd you do 10 years ago? He'll tell you a whole story. Oh, yeah, I remember I saw the Eagles play the Chargers in the third quarter, and he could tell you, like, all, but he couldn't watch a TV show, read a book, go to the movies, because he would forget what just happened because his short-term memory. So during his deposition, they're showing him the document that he filled out about hitting the head, right? His work from order for that day. So he starts reading, do you recognize this? He says, yeah, that's our work orders. And they say, who filled it out? And he said, well, you got to look at the bottom line, the signature. And they said, look at the bottom line. Signature goes, that's my signature. So they say, well, what work did you do that day? He says, you got to go to the description work section. They said, go to the description work section. So he starts reading. So he says, I see what this guy says he's doing. I see what this guy says he's doing. And they say, who says he's doing? And he says, whoever's form this is. They say, well, whose form is it? He says, you got to look at the subscription, at this signature line. They say, look at the signature line. That's my signature. All right, well, what work were you doing? I got to look at the description of the work.
Oh, no.
So I said, look at the description of the work. He goes there. And he says, I see what he says he's doing.
Oh no.
He couldn't like,
Yeah.
and so like preparing him for his deposition,
Yeah.
for trial, like when I was preparing for his deposition, I realized everything I'm saying to him, he's like, right, right, right. And then we go over it. I
Yeah.
was
Oh,
like,
wow.
that was his life.
Yeah.
That's them from I had another guy had a motorcycle accident, hit his head, went back to work at his hardware store, was working for a week. Finally, tremendous headaches. He passes out.
Huh.
Same thing, a pinprick bleed on his brain until the pressure increased. And he was back at work. Had another guy.
Yeah.
He was in an accident, called his wife, said, I'm fine. I think I just hurt my leg. Died from brain injuries. So the answer is sometimes brain injuries show up immediately.
Yeah.
They're laying on the ground unconscious. And sometimes right away they're better. Sometimes they're laying on the ground unconscious and the symptoms last 2 weeks or 2 months and they're better.
Yeah.
And sometimes the symptoms don't show up right away, but they come and then they go. And sometimes the symptoms come later and they don't go away. So every case is different and the injuries might reveal themselves later on.
Yeah. So wait, so do you have a certain like time limit before you can make a claim with that, or it just depends on each case?
So the thing to do, not just for your case, but for the quality of your life,
Yeah.
is if you think you might have hit your head, get yourself checked out. Get a neurological exam. Don't hesitate. And if you think you might be having symptoms, or if you think your loved one might be having symptoms, get them to a doctor.
Yeah.
Because there's a thing called neuroplasticity. It's not a term I invented. Doctors now know about it. They didn't always know about it. And you're younger than I am, but I could still say when you were a kid, they didn't know as much about neuroplasticity as they do now.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know as much 5 years ago as they do now. And neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to regenerate, to heal itself. So our brains have the consistency of oatmeal. Okay? And inside that mass are neurons. And neurons communicate with electricity. They call them electrical synapses, where they send chemicals called neurotransmitters to send out signals.
Mm.
And they have just a tremendous number of connections. We're still learning about the connections. Now, once there's a disruption, think of it as like a roadblock. If you've got a roadblock on your way to work, you can figure out a way to go around it. And the brain does that. The brain can create new ways to create new pathways. But the ability to create those new pathways can be influenced by the stimulus it receives.
Okay.
And doctors can help you to have the brain heal. And a delay in treatment could change the ability for the brain to heal. So the most important thing is to try and get that help that you can from a qualified, competent treating professional as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Additionally, there's different types of testing that doctors can send you for. The first thing that we learned about was x-rays. Well, not all injuries show up on x-rays. Then they learned about MRIs. Well, now there's other types of testing with higher resolution. Just like we have high def TV now, well, they have DTIs, diffuse tensor imaging, that can objectively show damage to the brain and give objective findings, meaning you can't fake it. It's not subjective. They actually do objective findings to find this damage. And competent professionals can send you for that testing. And not just for the money you might get from a case, but it might make your life better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's had that experience where somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Mel, how are you?" And you think to yourself, I don't know who the hell this guy is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, if your brain doesn't work the way it should, it can be a loss of quality of life. I had a client who fell down a flight of stairs and she hit her head and she lost her sense of smell. And she couldn't taste food. And she had an instance she told me about. I represented her, of course. And she had an instance she told me about right before the case was going to trial. And she said she went back to work and she was Asian. And apparently, like there was a problem with the bathroom and the toilet had backed up and it smelled up the office. And they said to, "Do you smell that?" And she said, "No." And they said, "Oh, that's because they commented upon her ethnicity, like you're used to that type of thing."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she felt bad.
Yeah.
She felt bad. But she had a brain injury.
Yeah.
And they can show themselves in a way that compromises the quality of life. And if you could avoid having those symptoms, it can improve your life. And that's why it's a good thing to get the right medical care. And those records become admissible evidence in your claim.
Ah, okay.
So you can get the compensation you deserve for the injuries you've sustained.
But there's no statute of limitations. Is that the right term? Or
there are statutes of limitations. You got
okay.
3 years to bring a claim for personal injury in New York. In other states like Connecticut, it's 2 years.
Okay.
If there's a municipal involvement, like this woman fell down, it was a transit authority case. You have to present the claim in 90 days.
Wow.
And then you have to file suit within a year and 90 days.
Yeah.
So there's always different timelines, and they can affect your ability to present a claim. So the most important thing is if you think you've been suffering from injuries that are related to an incident that you think somebody else at fault for, then you should contact a competent attorney like us, and we can advise you on your rights. And to consult is always free and confidential.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I really do enjoy about what you say repeatedly is like, it doesn't matter about you taking the case or not, but just you really do care about your clients, making sure that they're okay. And I think that's a really important message, which is I'm sure is going to draw a lot of people to choose to use you. So thank you, Mitch, for honestly, I think that's such a great thing. But yeah, I mean, there are more questions here. You basically answered them all. So I was like, oh, never mind. I don't have to ask. You're already doing it. So yeah, so I guess that's well, there you have it, folks. You heard it from the expert himself, Mitch Proner. That'll do it for now. And thank you again for taking the time to tune in, whether it's on our podcast or video broadcasts. We really do appreciate taking your time. And always remember, you can call us at 24/7 at, you want me to sing it? No.
Now you have to.
All right. 1-800-321-1234.
Well done, Mel.
Where consultations are free and confidential. People are staring me now. Also, if you have not yet, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Like, share, and please, please subscribe so you can get the latest updates. Now, before we go, Mitch, do you have anything else you want to add?
All right. Yeah, as always. So here, number one, get the medical care you need. That's number one. Number two, a lot of times you don't even notice you have these changes. It could be your family members. So if you're watching for a family member, make sure they get the help they need. Please, please make sure they get the help they need, because sometimes people can be grumpy. And it might be that they're grumpy not because that's just the type of person they are, but they're particularly suffering in ways that you can't imagine. You can have mood disorders. You can have a loss of sleep. And these can affect your affect or the way you present yourself, your mood. So if you think your loved one is suffering, make sure you implore them to get the help they need. Third of all, get in touch with an attorney. We can help guide you through the problems that you may be encountering, because an experienced attorney knows what they're doing and can help you figure out your rights and how to address the challenges you're facing. And once again, as Mel mentioned, to consult is always free and confidential, and we'd like to help you out. So thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you again, Mitch. Yeah, yet another informative session with you, and thank you all for checking us out. I know I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. So we'll see you next time, folks. Thanks again, Mitch.
Thank you. Be well.